yes, it's me. Welcome to the hard launch of long form content on my channel. I've never been truly consistent with long form content, and I never had structure to it. It's more or less just been whatever came to my mind I would post. But now I think I'm going to find a format. I'm going to try to be consistent because I know that's how you build a following. But honestly, I don't really care about that. I just want to tell my thoughts and ideas to the world because my family is sick and tired of hearing my rants, and I need to get this out to somebody. So this is for you. We're having a one-on-one conversation right now, and I think we're about to have some fun. Okay, so this video is about the new season of Bridgerton. Specifically, the plot twist of Francesca Bridgerton and her book's love interest, show's love interest, and the gender bending switch from Michael to Michaela. Now, as a person who didn't watch the series until this year, I wasn't really invested the same way everybody else was. Like, I got really into it with clips, and then I was just like, oh, let me watch some recaps. And then I watched the recaps, and I was like, oh, let me watch the show. And I'm like, wow, I really like this show. So, and I got really attached to the characters. I love the Pollen season. I do think there were some things they could have tightened up on, but like at the end of the day, they had a story to tell, and I think they told it. But I'm not here to talk about Pollen. I'm here to talk about Francesca and her love interest and how people are fuming on the internet. Now, everyone keeps claiming this is homophobia. Like, this is the reason why everybody's so mad is because, oh, they don't like it, that's a queer relationship. Now, I'm not saying that's not true, because I'm pretty sure there are some people out there who are just like, oh, why do they have to make everything gay? But the majority of the fan base is pissed because now the story cannot be truly adapted from the books. I've never read the books. I don't know what goes on in the books, but I do understand because I've seen videos about people explaining what's going on in the books. That sounds really contradictory to my last statement. There's no script here. I have no script, so I'm going off the cuff right now, so bear with me. One day I might get organized and get a script, but for right now, I'm just gonna go off what's going on the top of my brain. Okay, so, hey, it's like a real conversation though. We're having a conversation, you and me. We're besties right now. Like, we're besties. You and me, we're having a conversation. So you're just gonna have to deal with me and my stream of never-ending consciousness. Anyway, I've noticed from YouTube and TikTok and all the places that when people would rank the books of the Bridgerton books, Francesca's book is always in the top 3. Normally it's the top book. Like, they're just like, this is their favorite book, is Francesca's story. And I mean, from what the plot has been told to me, it sounds like a really good book that delves into deep themes about like insecurity, imposter syndrome, grief, infertility, guilt. Like, it's just like, it was really good and juicy. And for it not to be able to truly be adapted, I understand why the fans are a little upset, because now they have to cut some plot lines that was originally intended for the characters, because it's 2 women. They can't have a fertility plot line with 2 women love interests. I mean, they can, but at the end of the day, she would still Francesca would be like choosing having a full family and being with the woman she loves. So I'm pretty sure there's a way to make it work. Like, I'm not saying there isn't a way to make it work, but I am saying it would be a little bit more of a stretch than having a male love interest. But honestly, there's not much changes that really need to be made when it comes to the inferiority complex and the grief. And now there's actually another little subplot added to it that can deepen Francesca's character even more. So let me backtrack. The season 3, one of the side plots was Francesca meeting and marrying John Sterling of Kilmartin. And she basically meets him and finds him someone that she can spend time with, a good companion. So she's like, okay, I want to marry him. Her mother's not really sure about the match. She's like, oh, I don't know. This doesn't feel like true love. And she's like, Just because it doesn't look like the way that Daphne and Simon and Anthony and Kate have been falling in love, and Colin and Penelope, that doesn't mean that my love is any less valid. And like, she was digging her heels in, being like, I'm going to marry him. This is real, true love. And Violet eventually comes around and she's like, you know what, I'm sorry, I'm only used to one way of true love, but but I do know that there's other ways of falling in love, and I respect your love, and I respect your relationship. But she basically sits back and explains how she felt when she met Edmund, Francesca's father, and when Francesca got married to John and they kissed, because this is the first time they ever kissed, because Francesca is a good girl. She's not like the girls in the beginning, the main characters, she's a good girl. She waited. She only spent time with him when there was she mostly only spent time with him when she had what's the word? A chaperone, that's the word. When she had a chaperone, she never really spent time with him alone. They never kissed. They were just like, oh, we're gonna wait till marriage for all the, spicy stuff. But she kissed him on the wedding day, and she's like, oh no, this does not feel right at all. But it's too late. She married him. They are married. I mean, I guess they could have gone in a moment, but it's just like there was no real reason, at least in Francesca's mind, there was no real reason for her to call off the wedding, or to be like, oh, yeah, we shouldn't be together anymore, because I don't feel fireworks. I don't feel the tingles. So she's like, oh, maybe it'll grow over time, but she did seem a little disappointed after her first kiss with her husband. And then you get to the ball, the butterfly ball, and that's where you meet, plot twist, Michaela Sterling. In the book, she is Michael Sterling. And that sent the whole internet on a rage. People were so hot. And I was just and everybody said, oh, it's so not book accurate. It kind of betrays the relationship that was building between Francesca and John. And I understand why people have a loyalty to John, because it's just we spent the whole season just to get to know him and learning to love him, just for her to not feel that way about him and kind of not disregard him, but basically it's just oh, when she meets Michaela, it's oh, now I know what true love is. John isn't my true love, it's Michaela. And it feels kind of crappy, because it's just oh man, you made us fall in love with John just for him to get cucked by his wife and his cousin. And I remember people saying in the books, Michael is the one who falls in love with Francesca, not the other way around. When they first meet, it's Michael who's head over heels, while Francesca is more or less oh, a new family member to love and adore as family. She saw him as a friend. And actually, they became best friends during out the book. She loved hearing his stories. He was a rake, so he had tons of scandalous stories for her to tell, and she was eating that up. Okay? She was eating it up. She was all for their friendship, and then a relationship grew from that. It's kind of like friends to lovers, like Pollen, but no, it's friends to lovers like Pollen. There's no difference. It's just another friends to lovers story, except it's a little bit more complicated, because Michael looked up to John his entire life. And it's just even though they were raised like brothers, he still saw him as a better man than him. So when John died, he basically felt like he stole his cousin's life, because he took his cousin's titles, he has his lands, his fortune, and now he wants his wife. He wants his cousin's widow. It's just I think that was a little too much for him. So the whole story is about him after the death of his cousin is to get over his inferiority complex and realize that he is worthy of love and that he can earn Francesca's love in return. And while Francesca, on the other hand, is dealing with her grief, also grappling with the fact that she is not done trying to have children. Like, her goal is to be a mother, so she has to get back out there. So she, gets back out there, and then eventually Michael realizes, no, I'm in love with her, and they tell each other, and, Bridgerton chaos ensues where she runs away, but then comes back, and now they're together. Also, I forgot to mention, I'm going to put this in the title, but spoilers. If you don't want to be spoiled, I am not afraid of spoilers. I actually love me a good spoiler because it just makes the show more exciting for me to be like waiting for when the moment hits. Yeah, I know I'm a freak. Yeah, I know I'm a freak, but let's keep moving forward. So that story can still play out. Like, the infertility plotline, I'm not entirely sure. I'm pretty sure they can figure out a way to make it work, but I'm not going to focus on that. I'm going to focus on the fact that you can still give Michaela an inferiority complex. Like, it's just like, she always has looked up to her cousin. She always wished she could have his life, but as a woman, she can't. She can't own her own land. She can't have her own titles, not without a man attached to her. So it's just like she's envious of his freedom and his ability to be with the woman she loves without, fear of being persecuted and judged and shunned from society. And she has to deal with the imposter. She could still deal with the imposter syndrome, where it's just like she still gets the benefit from her cousin's life, even though he's no longer around, and now she's gonna take his place. Because the way I could see this work is that when John passes, Francesca, you have to get rid of the infertility plotline. Francesca is either about to give birth or has given birth to the next Lord Kilmartin. So he becomes the heir, and she becomes the dowager viscountess until Kilmartin becomes of age. Is Lord Kilmartin a viscount, or is he just a lord? I'm just going to call him the next lord, because I do not want y'all in the comments be like saying, not a terminology. I don't, okay? I'm not that invested. I'm a casual fan. But I just want to make my opinions known, because I see a lot of people having opinions about this plot line, and I wanted to give a perspective as an actor, as someone who enjoys film and TV and loves doing script analysis. I just wanted to give my opinion. So this is what this is. It's just opinion, okay? And I'm not super well informed. Hopefully one day I will do a lot more research, but right now I'm just going off the cuff because I have been thinking about this idea for so long, and I just needed to tell somebody. I need to tell somebody, and I'm telling you, okay? I am telling you. You should feel very, very special, because I don't talk to many people. Can you tell? What was I talking about again? Okay. No, back on track. So get rid of the infertility plotline. Have Francesca give birth to the next Lord Kilmartin. Have her become the dowager lady while he is coming of age. And have Michaela deal with the fact that she's replacing her cousin in his family. Like, she gets to have his family. She gets to have his loving wife and his adoring son. And she feels like, oh, I wouldn't have been able to have this if my cousin did not die. That's where the inferiority complex come in. And for Francesca, not only is she dealing with grief, she's now also dealing with guilt. Because in the season 3, they showed that after she kissed Kilmartin, she realized she doesn't really feel that way about him. So there's where the guilt comes in, because he dies loving her. He dies knowing that he loved her, while she knows that she was never able to reciprocate her love the same way that his love he had for her. So she's like, oh no, how can his death bring my happiness? How can I be happy with his cousin when I couldn't truly give him the happiness myself? So I'm not going to let myself be happy with Michaela. I am just going to stick to being just her friend. We're going to raise the child together, and we're going to move forward until my sole focus is to become to help him become the Lord Kilmartin. That is going to be her sole focus, instead of her dealing with her emotions and her feelings of not truly being able to love John the way he deserved, because when they got married, they both thought it was a love match. But for her, she realized it wasn't. And that's where the guilt comes in. And the sad part is that she spent all her time in this part 2 with her mother basically digging in her heels, saying that just because our love isn't flashy and showy and passionate doesn't mean that it's any less true. And for her mom to be proven right in the end, it's kind of funny to think about, but it's kind of realistic in the fact that you have to remember she is 17 years old when she gets married. And as a 17-year-old, you don't really know what you want out of life. Like, it's just like you don't really know who you want to be with. And so Kilmartin was her first experience in love ever, and she couldn't decipher the difference between romantic love and platonic love. What she felt for Kilmartin was probably platonic love, but she couldn't decipher the difference. Everyone goes through that. I went through that as a young girl. I had to learn the hard way that there is a difference, that romantic feelings are supposed to feel different than platonic feelings, and if it doesn't, then that means you probably don't have romantic feelings for this person. Anyway, so Francesca had to learn the hard way. And, she kind of already made her bed. And, I mean, she could have made a worse bed. Like, Kilmartin, John Sterling, he is very attentive to her needs and wants. Like, it's just, like, he always been able to gauge her and meet her where she is. Like, when they first met, he could tell she was pretty overstimulated, and she didn't really want to talk, and she didn't want to be bothered. But he just wanted to be in her presence. He just kept her company until her carriage came by. And that kind of was like sweeping her off her feet, because she's like, wow, you respected my boundaries and my space, but also didn't want to leave me alone, and you wanted to be there for me, even though I was a complete stranger. And then when they had her call hour, he came over and they didn't say a word. Like, they were just sitting there vibing, like just hanging out, just like, I'm just enjoying your company, but not really talking that much. And her family was just like, because they're the mouths of the Ton, like, they cannot stop talking. All the Bridgertons want to do is talk. So for her to just like be able to just sit there with a guy and just not really say anything, they're just like, what is happening here? It's so weird, And then like another time was when they met in public. Like, they ran into each other in public, and he tried to make small talk about the song that was playing in the background, and she said she didn't really like it because the beat was off, and that she really needed to change it to a 3/4 count, and he just kind of left after she said that. So she thought she messed up, but in reality, he rushed off to a composer to get the sheet music to compose in the count that she wanted for the song, so it can sound better, and that she will have the sheet music herself and she can play it. So when they went to the ball, he presented her with the sheet music. She was completely touched, and that was basically it. That sealed the deal for Kilmartin, for Francesca, in her mind at that moment. She was like, there's not going to be a better man than him. I want to marry him. So with that background out of the way, I got a little sidetracked there, but like, it does make sense of why Francesca believed she was in love with him, because he was very kind, very considerate, and very caring, and matched her where she was. Because in a scene with her brothers and Kilmartin, or Sterling, John, Jesus, so many names and titles, John is shown to be a little bit more rowdy and lively. Like, he's not exactly an extrovert by any means, but he's not as subdued as he presents himself to Francesca, showing that he meets her at her level and kind of just matches her energy, because he knows that she could probably get overwhelmed by too much. So he's just like, oh, let me take it easy, and let me just, relax and let her open up to me. Yeah, so, I mean, John has showed how much he cared about her and how much he's willing to spend his life for her and to provide her happiness. And in theory, on paper, they are a pretty amazing match. And you spend the whole season falling in love with John just to find out the gut punch that Francesca doesn't feel the way that John feels about her. And that, I think the reason why people didn't like it that much is because everyone watches Bridgerton for the fairy tale, for the escapism, for the romance. But that plot line, that plot twist, brought you straight back to reality, because you know good and well everyone has at least had one person that was good on paper. Like, it made sense why you two were together, why you should be together. But it just still didn't work. The energy wasn't right. The situation wasn't right for you or the person you're with. And the thing is, it's just like, you know, the fandom, a lot of people were accusing the fans that were upset by this change, making Francesca interested in a woman, is that they were homophobic. When I don't think that's true, because a lot of the book fans were clamoring for Benedict and Eloise to be a part of the LGBTQ. And they kind of got their wish, because Benedict is open, like the end of season 3, he ended where he was just like, now I'm going to go just have fun with everybody. Like, I'm just gonna sow my oats. Like, I'm not gonna settle down with one person when I now have a new array. Like, it's just like, it's like another level of the buffet has been opened to him. Like, he's like, oh, now I can try new things. I want to try everything now. Like, he wants to just explore. So it's just like, so you still get a queer love interest, not a queer love interest, a queer main character in the next season, but there is a huge chance he's not going to end up with someone who is like, he's not going to end up in like an openly queer relationship, if that makes sense, because the masquerade ball really, like, he meets his love interest at the masquerade ball, and they're not going to let him dance with a man, like a man that, you know, is physically shown as a man, because the Ton is still homophobic. They are not racist anymore, or at least slightly less racist, but they are still homophobic. So they can't, like, he can't dance with another man. So the love interest is going to have to be femme. Now, whether she's cisgender or not, that's yet to be seen. I'm pretty sure they can't. Like, it's just like, I wouldn't be shocked if they did. They did make the love interest transgender, and I would not be mad about it if they did. But let me get back to Francesca, because I'm getting a little sidetracked. My brain's all over the place. Again, this is a stream of consciousness of thought. There is no script, so just stick with me, okay? It's like having a conversation. Remember, we're having a conversation. I'm glad you're still here, if you're still here. If not, I understand why you left. Anyway, Francesca, you know, the fandom isn't homophobic. I just feel like people didn't see her to be a part of the LGBTQ. And I think that took them off guard. And I think the compounding of not being able to fully adapt the story the way it should have been adapted, the way they want it to be adapted, is just a gut punch. And now they have to deal with, and they have to reckon with that. And they feel like, they feel a little slighted. So I think that's why there's so much backlash. But I think once this Francesca seasons come out, hopefully the writing will be like so phenomenal that no one will care, and everyone's happy that no one cares that they changed the love interest to be female. But you know, I as a story wise, for a story development, I think it was a really good plot line for Francesca. Like, Francesca's subplot was really good and actually pretty realistic, and I think that's why it rubbed people the wrong way, because her romance is probably the most realistic in the season. Her meeting someone, and it's not some fiery passion, it's just someone who's a like-minded soul and is just kind and temperamental and is just middle of the road, good for you. And you're just like, yeah, I can live with this. I think I can spend the rest of my life with this. But then realizing that she kind of settled for him, and that he wasn't going to be able to provide her the feeling she was taught from a young age is how love is supposed to feel. And for her to realize that and then find someone who does make her feel that way is insane. Like, it's just like, I think a lot of people were also upset by the fact that it's just like, why is it Francesca the one who is like nervous and overheals for Michaela? Why isn't Michaela the one acting that way? Because in the book, Michael fell first. Francesca fell like after her husband died. Like when she didn't even think about Michael that way before her husband died. And then some years later after that, like it took a long time for Francesca to come around to the idea of her and Michael being together. So for her in the show to just automatically be like, oh my gosh, I want to be with Michaela, screw John. Like, it's just like, it kind of, I think that took all the book fans off guard. But since I wasn't really invested in the book the way that other people were, I can see the plot line and I understand where they're going with, and I actually kind of enjoy it because it's just like Francesca has to reap what she sowed. Like, she put her foot down and she said she is going to marry John. She married John. She basically is just like the human interpretation of be careful what you wish for, because her mama tried to warn her and she didn't want to listen, so now she has to live with the consequences of her actions. I mean, there are worse consequences to have, but like still, and even so, she is in love with another woman or has feelings for another woman. It will be a lot harder for them to actually be in a relationship because, again, the town isn't LGBTQ friendly, and that version of Regency England, even though they're open to new races, they're not really open to different types of diverse families. So even if they kept it where Michaela fell first, it was still going to be a difficult story to tell because, again, Michaela can't inherit the lands and the titles because that would basically tear down the Lady Featherington plotline for the last 2 seasons, where she was basically struggling trying to like ensure that her family still had money because they needed a man in order to inherit the Lord title, and that they were very dependent on men. So to have Michaela just inherit everything would be kind of a slap in the face to that storyline. And I don't think that that would be fair, and I don't think that the show is going to do that because they do try to stick to being close as they can to realistic to the Regency era. I mean, you know, they take their liberties, but they try to at least make it so you can still feel the fantasy. You know, it does, but it is a fantasy at the end of the day. It is wish fulfillment. So I understand why people were so upset by the change, because there is no fairy tale, fantastical, like she had 2 great loves. You know, like in Sex and the City, Charlotte says you have 2 great loves in life. And for Francesca, in the story, in her book, her great loves were John and Michael. But now in the show, they're basically saying, oh, she never really loved John. She didn't know she didn't love John until she met Michaela. And so that's basically negating everything that we built towards the entire season, just to be like, nah, she's actually into her cousin, into his cousin. So, yeah. Just gonna have to deal with that, you know. And I don't think people are down for that right now. Like, eventually I think people are gonna get over it, and I think when the season comes out, and if it's a good season, I don't think people are gonna care anymore. Like, the outrage is gonna be gone. But it just depends on the writers and the directors and where they're gonna go with this. Yeah, but that's all I have to say about Francesca Bridgerton and her plotline. And this is my first video that I've ever done long form, that I'm trying to stick to a consistent schedule. I'm actually really excited because this is new for me. I'm going to keep going on the Bridgerton train. I do have 2 more videos in mind talking about Colin and Eloise, because those are the 2 other characters that popped out to me most in my mind and that I want to talk about. So I will go in depth with them. But I think I'm going to make it a series of, defending characters. Because, especially characters that are considered unpopular or misunderstood. Ooh, let me know down below what I should call it. Should I call it, the misunderstood characters of popular TV shows and movies? Or something like that. Let me know. Give me titles down below if you're still watching. Like and subscribe. Bye.